It's time to focus. Are you ready? This is video number 1, which is the introduction. And first, what I want to do is to get you in the right mindset. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then we're going to talk about how it all works. You are about to dig deep, deep within yourself. You may never have done this before, and yet you may have gone about life wondering why you do the things that you do. Now, before you can become more focused, get things done, be more productive, and be successful, you have to come at this with a few things. You must be honest about your weaknesses, your strengths, bad habits, and good habits. Now, I hope that you're watching this video course alone, because this is not a time to judge others, but it's a time to judge yourself. So you got to be honest in order for this to work. And it's easy often for us to focus on our strengths. But if you can figure out your weaknesses and your bad habits, you'll get closer to being focused and breaking those bad habits, and closer to getting things done, being more productive, and being more successful. You've got to be truthful about yourself. And if you come at this course with this mindset, then you'll surpass yourself and reach your goals at a faster and more efficient rate than before. Now what I want to do is give you a quick overview of the video series as a whole in a little more depth so you can understand how everything pieces together. Video number 1 is the introduction to diffusing distraction. We've got so much distraction in our lives, and how do we diffuse that? How do we keep focusing on the right things? Video number 2 is about finding out your personality, or who you are. I know you're thinking, well, I know who I am. I know who I am. I know my strengths and weaknesses. But I've talked to many people, and they haven't really understood their personality type, how they think, why they think, and things like that. And the reason for this is it's customized. We're going to dig deeper and make it work for you. Everybody thinks differently, but we're going to make it work for you. In video number 3, we're going to talk about understanding the way you process data. If you understand the way you process data, you'll understand how you process information and how you can suck it in and push it out so that whenever you push it out, it's great quality, it's focused, there's not a lot of distractions, and it's more efficient. Video number 4, we're going to talk about understanding your habits and understanding your weaknesses. If you can understand your habits and your weaknesses, your bad habits and your weaknesses, which also tend to fall in the same category, then you'll be able to break through, pinpoint those trigger points when it's about to happen, and diffuse it before it explodes. Video number 5, we're going to talk about analyzing what you spend your time on. We're going to talk about offline methods and online methods. So in this day and age with technology and everything, you tend to spend time online. But how do you know what time is being spent on? Are you spending it on something that's actually reaching your goal, fulfilling that realistic goal? Or are you spending time on something that doesn't really help you in any way? So we're going to figure that out so you can understand not only habits and weaknesses, but understand what you spend your time on. Because at that point, that's when you can break free from your bad habits. Once you know your bad habits, once you really know what you spend time on, then you can break those bad habits. Then you know those trigger points or when it's about to happen. Video number 7, we're going to talk about how to remind yourself about your main focus. Video number 8, we're going to talk about how to set realistic goals. Now, this is often where most of these types of courses teach you how to set realistic goals, but many forget to customize it towards you. So once you've understand all of this about yourself, now you know how to set realistic goals and how to become accountable to yourself. We're going to talk about that in video number 9 because that is often what keeps you going. Accountability, having other people motivating you is important, but if you rely too heavily on people being accountable to you, whether that's a coach or somebody else, which is fine. Some people need a coach. We all need a coach. In fact, having a coach, I would highly recommend, would actually definitely help you in many, many ways. But you have to find the right coach. With that said, if you train yourself to be self-accountable, then you will surpass yourself in so many ways. You will never really have to rely on another human being to really motivate you. Now, extroverts, we do tend to want to communicate with other people, and that's fine. But if you are more self-accountable, more self-motivated, you will be more persistent, more consistent about what you do, and push forward. So with that said, let's talk about how it works. This is no ordinary system that gives you a generalized tips and tricks. First, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out who you really are. In terms of how you think, because the way you think isn't the same as the person next to you. But if you know yourself better, your strengths and weaknesses, then and then only you'll know how to direct yourself, break habits, and go where you have never been before. So with that said, let's move on to video number 2 and jump into this and figure out what your personality type is. Hey, and welcome to video number 2. In this specific video, we're going to be talking about how to find out your personality and who you are. This is the fun part because you get to learn more about yourself and the way you tick, your strengths, your weaknesses, and it also will help you figure out which direction you should head, which career, business, and more direction. 3 steps to your personality. Step number 1, we're going to take the test to find out your personality type. Now, there are many, many different types of tests out there. Over the years, I have actually studied many of these tests and figured out which one are more reliable, and I'm going to show you which ones that I would recommend that you take. Step number 2, after you take the test, you're going to be given 4 letters. And then what we're going to do is we're going to research these 4 letters. So I can pinpoint these 4 letters. We're going to figure out where you can find more information about them, more accurate information, and we're going to go from there. So let me show you how to do this in more detail. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is to go on to google.com and type in to the search box Socionics, that's Socionics space test, the Socionics test. I've used several different tests and I found that these tests tend to be the best. If you click on this link at the very top, you'll see 2 different tests, the Socionics Type Assistant Turbo and the Socionics Type Assistant Turbo XL. Now I'm going to open up these 2, and for the sake of time we're going to be taking this test here, the Socionics Turbo. The Socionics Turbo XL is actually what I recommend that you take. It's a 54 question test. It's not too long, but it'll give you a more accurate result. Now, you have to be honest here. If you're you're weak in some area, then make sure that you put that you're weak in that area. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself if you're not honest, because it's easy to think, oh, okay, I'm really good at this when we're really not good at a certain thing. So make sure that you fill in that details so that you can pinpoint and get an accurate 4-letter personality profile. So I'm going to take the turbo test, and what you need to do is simply read the question. It says, which population can you relate to the most? Now, keep in mind that most of you will feel like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm in both situations, but you're really not in both situations. Think about how you deal with things when you're alone, and think about how you deal with things in social settings, in relationships, and so forth. Which of these does it sound more like you? On the left-hand side, it says, are you involved in what is happening on the outside and around them? So are you thinking about what happens around you? Are you talkative? Are you a type of person that likes to be the center of attention? Do you gain your energy by being around people? Do you solve problems and create solutions by being around people? If that sounds like you, then you'll want to click this one. Now, I'm not going to read everything because it's a lot, but I'm just going to give you an overview of what to look for. So go ahead, pause this video and read this and figure out which one you are mostly like. And the people on the right they tend to have like solutions, develop solutions, and ideas are created by being alone. If that sounds like you like to be alone, you like your privacy, you don't really like people as much, people bug you, they drain you kind of thing. And of course, keep in mind that certain people are going to bug you just because they think differently and so forth. So that's not the point, it's the point of overall. Are you being bugged by people overall? Do people drain you overall? Do you have fewer friends, less friends, but very deep, deep friends? Then you're on this side. So this is extroversion and this is introversion. There's nothing wrong with being an extrovert or introvert, whatever. It's just we're all different. And you know, the beauty of that is that that's great. If we're all the same, it would be terrible. So pick one. I'm going to pick this one. This section here are people that tend to sense. And what I mean by that is when you process data, you use your senses. You use your sight, you use your smell, you use your, all your senses. So these types of people tend to be concrete, practical, hands-on, quickly get familiar with new places, very detail-oriented. They like to gather a lot of facts, a lot of data about certain, people, subject matters before they make a decision. So they tend to make a very calculated risk in terms of decisions that they make. Now, the people on the right are more intuitive. They tend to be more gut feeling. They do not like routine. They are more imaginative, idealistic, speculative. They love theories. They love abstract ideas. So in other words, if you think about it, the people on the left are more practical, hands-on. They like to do stuff. The people on the right-hand side are abstract, develop ideas. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what we need. So if you're an intuitive person on the right, a sensing person on the left, I'm going to choose this one. And here we have feelers and thinkers. Are you more of a person who is interested in other people's feelings? And this is nothing to do with if you're male or female. I mean, men have this too, depending on your personality type. So some men are very feely, or women are feeling, they're concerned about other people's feelings, their thoughts. They make their decisions by looking at different perspectives. And on the right-hand side, these people tend to be interested in systems, structures, logical analysis, are not really in tune to feeling and can't really express their feeling as much. They do not like arguments and quarrels and clearing up those situations and so forth. So there's nothing wrong with either or. There's always good sides and downsides to both. But the point is, which one are you? I'm more of a feeler, but I can say that in many situations that I'm very structured, systematic analysis, structure type person. In fact, the way I create these video series is that I'm very systematic. But how do I make my decisions? Like, how do you make your decisions? I'm more of a feeler. So the last question is, do you plan ahead but act impulsively, spontaneously? You have difficult commitments and so forth and so forth. Or do you plan ahead? You like rules and regulations. You like to stick to appointments, guidelines, and so forth. So now keep in mind that some of us can be this area and then we'll feel like sometimes we just want to do stuff spontaneous. But the question is not when do you do it in certain times, but when do you do it all the time? I'm more of a planner type person that likes rules and regulations and routines, but I do like to act impulsively in certain situations. But if you like to, when you run your business, do your career, or anything like that, do you like to plan ahead but act impulsively? Like, are your decisions made, okay, this is our idea, let's go ahead and do it, and so forth. So I am more of this person. So at this point, we have a 4-letter personality word. And this is what we need. Now you can hop on over to google.com and type in these 4 letters. And as you can see, the very most top link, personalitypage.com, is one of the sites that I use all the time, and I forward people to these sites. So if you click on this, it'll be customized to your personality profile, and it'll give you an overview of a little more detail about you. And if you go down here and click these 2 links, you'll see careers for your personality types, what best suits you, makes you want to, which careers and career paths and so forth. If you run a business, it'll give you a better idea of a type of direction, how you deal with people in a team effort, cooperative, and how you get things done. And ESFJ, relationships, strengths, weaknesses, how you deal with your relationships, and as parents, friends, and so forth. Now in the next video, I'm going to dig deeper and show you a little more detail what each letter means, so you can get a more accurate, because at this point, you might have 4 letters, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are these 4 letters. So we want to make sure that you are these 4 letters before you actually get into breaking your habits and getting your focus and setting those realistic goals. Hey, and welcome to video number 3, understanding the way you process data. Have you ever wondered why certain people just don't get it? You've got a coworker, employee, employer, a family member, a friend. They just don't get it. You can hang out with them at a certain time period, but after a while, you realize that they just don't get it. They're starting to annoy you, aggravate you, and so forth. And certain people on the flip side think that you just don't get it. Well, the reality of all of this is that we all think differently, and that's the beauty, but it can also be difficult. This is all because everybody thinks different in different situations. We're going to figure out for you how you process data, how you take in the information in, how you process it, how do you come to that decision, how do you make that decision, and how do you implement that decision. So if you understand all of these different parts and how they come together, then you're going to be able to make decisions more realistic, goals and decisions and implement those decisions at a more faster and efficient rate. So let's dig deeper and help you understand the different letters that you just received in the previous video so that you can understand yourself better. Intaking data would be the first letter, which is either introversion, the inner world, or the extroversion, the outer world. And I'm going to go in more depth in the future slides. The second letter is either S or N. S standing for sensing, which is someone who basically gathers lots of facts, lots of details. Now, some of you are thinking, okay, that sounds like me. I like to, when I make decisions or come to that decision, I want to make sure I've gathered all the statistics, all the facts, all the hard data before I make the decision. On the flip side, we have N, or intuition. Intuitive people who make gut decisions. Now, that doesn't say that intuitive people don't use statistics. Many do. But sensing tends to analyze, analyzing, could go into analyze paralysis, where you've analyzed a situation way too much. It's time to do something, but you're still analyzing the situation. So that could be sensing, and those tend to be creative type people. Intuitive people can be creative as well, but they see an overall big picture and they tend to get gut decisions. So, sensing people could look at intuitive people and think, okay, these people are flaky. And then intuitive people could look at S people and think, wow, these people they're still thinking and we're all the way ahead of them, So there's always upsides and downsides to both of them. There's no right or wrong answer. The third letter is F or T. F stands for feeling, T stands for thinker and thinking. F looks at different perspectives in people before they make their decisions. Thinker doesn't really look at people's feelings or anything like that. They look at logic. They see black and white. Okay, if this happens, then this has got to happen. Now the feeler thinks, okay, if this happens, then it might offend so-and-so. Or if this happens, it might mess up so-and-so's life or something. Or the way they do things. So F tends to look at the feeling, and the upside is they look at perspectives, they look at people, but at the same time, if they make decisions, they could also flip-flop because they make a decision, and if that's who you are, you're just going to need to be aware of how you take action and make decisions. J and P are the last letter, judging or perceiving. Judging tends to like rules and regulations and routines, and perceiving tends to be spontaneous and impulsive. So let's go a little more in depth about extroversion E and introversion I. E gets energy from being around people, needs to talk to other people to figure out solutions. Motivated by people, needs alone time sometimes, but gets drained if not around people enough. So if you're an E and you're making a decision, a realistic goal, and trying to focus, then you're motivated by being around people. And that's the truth. And on the I, gets energy from being alone, needs to think things through alone, motivated by their inner world, and people drain them. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't love people. Introverts, they love people, but being around people too long can drain them. So if you're an E or an I, whenever you're trying to discover that goal or trying to figure out, okay, what should I make? Should I make this decision or should I make that decision? Now, there's good sides and bad sides to both. On the E side, you want to be around people to help you make decisions. But at the same time, a downside is you don't want to become too dependent on these people that you become accountable. Like these people become your accountability. But then if you're not self-accountable to yourself, then when these people leave, then there goes your, consistent and persistence towards that, making that decision and goal happen. On the flip side, if you're introversion I, you get energy by being alone, but not all the ideas are going to come, from you, which a lot of ideas you can find out from other people. You might get other ideas simply by talking to other people. So there are good sides and there's downsides to both. It's just to figure out which one are you and how you can go about that. So this is where you get your motivation and your energy. You're going to need that consistent movement and energy and motivation. And then once you get to that point, how do you process data? How do you take data in? So I talked about this earlier, intuitive. You're able to see the big picture, see abstract ideas, theory, long-term, and so forth. And then brainstorms a lot. Tends to have sudden, strong judgments, gut feelings, and so forth. And on the flip side, you got sensing, usually very traditional, trusts the establishment, rules and regulations, and so forth. Gathers lots of facts, details, and data about people or subject matters, and then makes calculated judgments. So that's just how you process data. And then once you process that data, how do you make that decision? Well, you can either feel it out or think logically. So feelers, they see different perspectives before making decisions, consider other feelings when making decisions. They're compassionate about people and they love people. But they're very emotional. They can be emotionally manipulative, so that could be a downside. If they want to get their way, they can use emotion and so forth. Thinking, T, uses logic to make choices. They often see black and white, not much gray area, which could be a downside as well. And as you notice, I'm not really picking on one. I'm just pinpointing both and showing you downsides to both. So thinking, if you're in a situation where you're dealing with people, you might want to consider or try to consider other people's feelings and so forth. So very rational thinking. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you got perceiving P and judging J. P tends to be spontaneous, go with the flow and flexible, enjoys surprises and changing plans. J enjoys routines, to-do lists, scheduled, organized, and structure. Now, you could be either or. Now, like, for example, you could be a person that enjoys routine, but you also probably enjoy spontaneous times, go with the flow times, and so forth. Like, you could be judging in your business life and be somewhat judging and a little bit perceiving in your personal life. But this is all the question of where are you most of the time, either P or J. Because this could really impact the way you focus and are distracted and so forth. All right, so by now you should have a better view of which letters that you fall under and how they can impact you taking in information, making decisions, taking action, and so forth. Now let's take it one step further and look into the habits and possible weaknesses that you have so that we can get past those roadblocks. Hi, welcome to video number 4. We're going to be talking about understanding your habits and your weaknesses. If you understand your weaknesses, which usually fall into your bad habits, then you'll be able to focus on either resolving them or even strengthening them. So the goal of this video is not to break your habit just yet, but to pinpoint it, what triggers it, so that you can see when it happens. Weaknesses often contribute to bad habits, so we're going to look at this from your personality. Let me ask you some questions. What makes you stop? What makes you irritable? What makes you angry? What makes you want to quit? What are your bad habits? What are your weaknesses? Can you think when the bad habit happens? What are you doing specifically? And what are you doing right before it happens? Is there something that is consistent happening? And the reason why I want you to think carefully, and you can pause this video and just think about it or write down on a piece of paper your habits. Now, you might be one of the people out there who think you don't have any bad habits. We all have bad habits. We all have quirks and things like that. If you don't know or think of anything, then go to somebody that you trust. Don't go to just about anybody. Go to somebody that you trust, a family member, a good close friend, and so forth, and ask them point blank, be honest. What are my habits? What are my weaknesses? And just let them blurt it out and write it down on a piece of paper. And we're going to dig a little deeper in the future. So now let's take a quick look at your personality and pinpoint some weaknesses. And type in your 4 letters. And if you go to the top link, normally it is located at personalitypage.com/your4letters.html. So if you don't see personalitypage.com at the very top, which you should, they're very high and ranked, just type that in, personalitypage.com/letter.html. So in this case, I'm going to click on the ESFJ. And make sure you read through here, but in this case, we're going to go straight to the ESFJ relationships section and go under strengths and weaknesses. Now, it's good to know your strengths. Obviously, you might find strengths that you never thought you really had, but it's often the case that it's harder to look inside and see what kind of strengths and weaknesses you have until somebody else tells you that knows you very well. So if you go to the strengths section, as you can see, the ESFJ weaknesses. The E stands with extroversion, S sensing, F feeler, and J judger, or routines and so forth. Weaknesses: generally uncomfortable with change and moving into new territories. Extreme dislike of conflict and criticism. Needs a lot of positive affirmation to feel good about themselves. May overly status conscious and interested on seeing how others see them. Have difficulty time ending a relationship. Have difficulty accepting negative things, and don't pay enough attention to their own needs, and may use guilt manipulation to get what they want. So let's take, for example, this profile here. We can see that the ESFJ, the weaknesses that they have is that they're uncomfortable with change and moving into new territories. They are extremely dislike of conflict and criticism, and basically are motivated when other people give them motivation to feel good about themselves. So knowing this can be an issue, and this can be a roadblock, because if you're trying to make a decision and you're trying to focus on something and you rely too heavily on other people, then that can be a problem. Because when you try to give yourself accountability to yourself, to be self-motivated, self-accountable, then if you're too accountable to other people, then you can eventually fail, because there will be times in the decision-making process and trying to get something done that it's only you and you alone that needs to push forward. So knowing that kind of weakness, I could even work on that weakness, and whatever weaknesses that you have, you could be working on that too. Now let's take a different flip side, and let's say something like, go back to Google, and we're going to say something like something totally opposite, INTP. So if I type that in, you see personality page up here. I'm going to click on that. And this is the thinker. Total opposite from the ESFJ. So if I go down here, click on INTP relationships, and you go down to weaknesses, it says weaknesses: not naturally in tune with other feelings, slow to respond to emotional needs, not naturally good at expressing their own feelings and emotions. So right there we can see a communication situation tends to be suspicious and distrusting of others, which can be a good thing. Not usually good at practical matters such as money management unless their work involves these concerns. They have difficulty leaving bad relationships and tend to blow off conflict situations by ignoring them, or else they blow up in heated anger. So in this case, the INTP, as you can see, they are not threatened by conflict or criticism. So that's quite the opposite of the ESFJ, which is a good thing. They're not threatened by it, but usually at this point, as you can see here, not in tune of other people's feelings and emotions. So if you're dealing with a situation where you're dealing with people and you're an INTP, then you need to be aware of that. If you're aware of that weakness and you're trying to move forward with a project and you're dealing with, let's say, a feeler or some sort of ESFJ, ESFP, ESF something, or ENFJ or anything like that, then you need to be in tune of trying to be communicative to understanding both perspectives. Now, INTPs are generally good at self-motivation, so that can be a plus. So as you can see, it's very, very opposite, but at the same time, there are weaknesses and downsides as well. So the whole idea here is just to figure out your weaknesses. There's nothing wrong with weaknesses. We're all weak in some sort of area. So if you can figure out your weaknesses, then you can understand how it can impact or become a roadblock or a bad habit that could be blocking you from making a decision, implementing a decision, and so forth, or working in a team to make that happen. So that's that, and make sure you write this down and write out solutions so that you can begin to resolve this. And just be aware of this. You don't have to resolve this right away, but be aware of this so that you can understand how to tackle these situations. Hi, and welcome to video number 5. We're going to be analyzing what you spend your time on. So in the previous video, we talked about your habits and weaknesses. Now we want to pinpoint what you actually spend your time on. Why is this important? Well, if you know where your time is being spent, you can figure out what needs to be stopped and what needs to continue. For example, if you're spending a lot of time on Facebook and you're not actually on Facebook for work or business or anything like that, you could be spending 3 hours a day on Facebook. Now, you're thinking, no way, no way. But it could be 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 30 minutes there, here and there. But if you don't know, then how are you going to be able to stop it? I've used this method before when I actually was addicted to Facebook and I spent 2 hours a day on Facebook, and most of it wasn't even due to work or business. And once I figured out that I was spending about 2 hours a day, I minimized that, and now I only spend about an hour a week or less. So in all that hours is being put on projects that I'm doing and actually taking a lot of action, and it's been great. So you're going to learn both offline and online methods, because some of you may not be online a lot. Some of you may be online. If you're online a lot, then and you're on your computer a lot, then the online methods will help a lot. So once you see where your time is being spent, it'll make things just easier to adjust. So let's do an offline analysis. Sometimes it's good to have somebody else to tell you their observations of how you spend your time. It's not going to be easy. In fact, those of you who do not like constructive criticism, you're probably going to get offended by this when somebody gives you constructive criticism. Now, just imagine though, you want this criticism and you want to improve, you want to make those realistic goals, get those decisions made and complete them. So you want to be open to getting somebody to tell you the truth. So a lot of times they can see more than you can see yourself. So only choose somebody that sees you consistently. Don't choose somebody who does not choose you consistently. Now, if you don't have another person to help you, then you're going to need to do it yourself. The way you do it yourself is, for example, you can document what you do. So go about your regular day and document after every few hours exactly what you do. And this could be in the form of, okay, I woke up, and be detailed. I woke up, I wanted to work, but I decided not to work because I was in bed. So I stayed in bed for another hour and I woke up and I had to work, I had to do business, but I decided to, go watch a movie instead. And I figured, okay, I had this project and I have to do it later, but I could do it later. So I decided to watch another movie. And at that point, I was finally working. I was determined to get this done. I was desperate. I wanted to get it done. Then the phone rang and my girlfriend or fiance or wife or son or daughter called me and this and that. And from that point, I got distracted. I had to take care of something urgent for my son or daughter or wife or husband or so forth, whoever it is that you might be calling you. And I want you to do that and be honest. And the next day, let it sit and just go over it the next day and analyze it and see what happened. Where did the distractions happen? And what do you need to do to resolve these distractions? Like the phone, tell your family and friends and so forth, hey, between these hours and these hours, do not call me unless it's a dire emergency. If something happens, like you need to go to the emergency room, then call me. But these are hours that are specific. And those hours, you could say, okay, I'm addicted to Netflix or I'm addicted to movies. Then cancel your Netflix subscription and only get movies from Redbox or some sort of Redbox from Walmart or some sort of DVD and so forth. And that's something that I had to do personally in order to really focus. You have to figure out what are your distractions. You could even go to an extent where you say, hey, okay, I'll treat myself to Netflix or I'll treat myself to a movie if I complete a certain project. So that's the offline analysis. The online analysis is using specific computer programs that will sit on your computer and analyze every single program that you open up, every single website you visit, and so forth. And it'll give you a chart of everything that you do. There are 3 different programs that are recommended. One is Rescue Time, which is at www.rescuetime.com. The second is called Manic Time, manictime.com. And Clock, which is for mobile phones and desktops. Now, it is only available for Android mobile phones. It's at getklok.com, get KLOK.com. And with that said, let me show you Rescue Time in action so that you can get an idea of how it can really help you and how it can really help you analyze what you're spending your time on. I personally use Rescue Time, and this is the second year that I've used it. and it's been great. All right, so this is rescuetime.com, and I have an account with them, and it's not expensive at all. I believe it's like $5 a month or something, and if you do an annual subscription, it's a lot cheaper. But Rescue Time is really, really effective because what it does is it sits on your computer. So right now, I've got this program sitting on my computer that analyzes every site I go to and so forth. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, what about privacy and this and that? I do believe they don't actually save this information to sell it or anything like that, but I obviously want to read their terms and conditions. But in terms of analyzing your own time, as you can see here, it tells you, okay, I opened Windows Media Player for 15 minutes, YouTube, Netflix. I spent about 3 minutes on Netflix, Animoto, Camtasia, YouTube, and so forth. And it shows you how productive you are. Now, my average productivity is 4 hours. Now, keep in mind that even though you have a 9-hour job, doesn't always mean that your productivity time is 9 hours. You see, productivity time is all the time that has been focused purely on work. So that doesn't include breaks or anything like that. And if you think about it, within an hour, how much time do you really focus within an hour on something? Like really, really focus. If your productivity time is 4 or even 5 or 6 hours, then that's a lot of productivity time. And productivity time is minus phone calls, minus meetings, minus everything. So this is why I really, really like it, is it tells you, how much time you're spending productivity and how much time you're wasting. Now, keep in mind that it does categorize certain things like Facebook and other social media sites as distracting, and I actually use Facebook for business, so you need to actually specify that information. Now, I'm going to give you a quick run through here so you can see what's on the inside. So I can see where my time is being spent: social networking, shopping, 42 minutes in shopping. And this could include in time that I'm free too. But it's good to see an overall view of what time is being spent on. And I can see it on a yearly basis. Let's see, 80 hours, weekly basis, daily basis, and monthly basis. So you can see how you are improving over time. And that's the beauty of it. And it breaks it down by categories: design, social networking, entertainment, business, software development, and so forth. And you can break it down further by clicking Activity Summary, and you can actually see exactly what you spend your time on in specifics. Like Gmail, I spend 16 hours total for the month in Gmail because I have a lot of emails coming in and out. Amazon, spend time on there, and Notepad, PowerPoint, MS Word, and so forth and so forth. So as you can see, it shows you a layout of how much, even if you have, let's say you have businesses, you could focus on, okay, how much time am I spending in certain businesses? Which business is taking more time? Which is taking less time? Which one is producing more results? And which one is producing less results? And what do I need to be focusing my time on? So this really, really helps, and it digs down deep. And what I like about this is that you can actually change these. Like, for example, Amazon, you can make it distracting, or you can make it productive. To me, it's productive because I do Amazon stuff. And it just digs deep and shows you all the different sites that you visit. And you can view the documents and details section, which shows you what kind of documents, programs, and such that you access. And you can also set goals and see if you reach those goals and so forth. So after about a year of just really digging and really looking at this, I found that it really helped me because once you know what you're spending your time on and once you know your habits and your weaknesses, then you can really change that around and make a plan and create that plan so that you can break those habits. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video in terms of how to break those habits. Hey, and welcome to video number 6. In this specific video, you're going to learn ways to break free from your bad habits. The first thing is to use what we call a trigger. A trigger or triggers are rituals that you perform and do before a habit happens. So the trigger comes before a habit. Let me give you an example. Before you sleep, you tend to take a shower, or before you sleep, you tend to brush your teeth, or your alarm clock rings so that you can wake up. So if you wanted to stop being addicted to Facebook or YouTube, you could smack yourself in the face if you have the urge. No, just kidding. Actually, perhaps you could snap your fingers when you want to do it. A trigger basically helps condition yourself to be consistent. So if you can create some sort of trigger or figure out what kind of trigger it is before you have a habit, then you can create another trigger to break that habit. Another thing that you want to probably do is to write it down on a whiteboard or something that you see every day. Now, your brain is not going to remind you of your commitments, but a whiteboard or reminders can and will. For example, you can write them on a whiteboard so that you can see them every time you wake up. Or you can put them on a calendar and have a system like Google Calendar remind you every day at a specific normal time that the habit happened. So imagine that you have a certain bad habit, like you go on Facebook or YouTube a lot during 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. around the time of your lunch period. So you can have a reminder that is set every day that says, hey, so-and-so, you're probably looking at Facebook, but you're trying to avoid doing that, so quit it. So this is just another thing that you can use and implement to break a habit. Another thing to do is realistically, you cannot break habits. You can't break too many habits at one time. You've got to focus. Focus is so important. So try to break one habit per month. I know it seems like a long time, but if you think about it, if you do something for about 21 to 30 days, or you don't do something for 21 to 30 days, then you can normally break it. Unless, of course, you do it within those days. So you definitely want to make sure that you don't do that habit for 21 to 30 days. If you do that habit again, you might have to reset it. Try to do one per month. If you try to break 5 within a month, most of the time it's going to fail and you're just going to end up empty-handed because you're going to think about those 5. You're not going to be able to actually focus on one, and it's never going to happen. But amazingly, if you can break 12 habits in a year, which is a lot versus trying to break so many at a time, then you will actually do a lot better. Another method is to replace your needs with rewards. So let's say you break a bad habit. In some sort of way, you're going to need to fulfill it in some sort of different manner. So in this case, when you analyze your time and you remove certain things, you're going to need to replace it later. Now, if you replace it with rewards, it's going to be fun, it's going to be competitive against yourself, and it's going to be a game. It's something that you're going to look forward to doing. For example, if you give up television, then you're going to still want to replace it with another form of entertainment, possibly some sort of productive entertainment or a different type of entertainment. For example, let's say that you give up Netflix. You've got Netflix streaming or you've got Netflix DVDs and you're constantly getting Netflix. And even me, I get really distracted and some days are unable to work just because you get so distracted. So give up Netflix, but replace it by, let's say, going to the movies. Let's say I say, okay, if I get this project done, I'm going to go to the movies instead and enjoy myself and reward myself. If you do that, you're rewarding yourself to break that habit. Another good technique is to have peer pressure. Now, obviously, peer pressure is not always going to have that positive connotation. A lot of times, peer pressure gets that negative connotation. But in this case, it's more about accountability. Let me give you an example. Peer pressure is good if you can find somebody who really cares about you and wants you to break your bad habits as well. Now, this is not really going to work on somebody who doesn't really care about you. They've got to care about you, whether it's your mother, your father, your sibling, your brother, or your spouse, or so forth. Tell your friend or whoever that you want, that you really trust, hey, I'm going to give you $200 now, or I'm going to give you blank, with the condition that if I break this habit, then you're going to give it back. So it's that incentive that, hey, you get to keep it if I actually do this habit again. Or I get the money back if I actually break this habit in 30 days. So it's kind of like, you got people together and they say, okay, I'll shave my hair if such and such happens. So it is peer pressure. You got another person involved. It's not really super accountability with that person, but at the same time, you're being self-accountable to yourself, but at the same time, you've got that as some sort of peer pressure. Another thing is to be consistent by using checkpoints. We all have checkpoints. We go on the road, we drive, and there's checkpoints, and they have to check us and so forth. Why don't you create some checkpoints for yourself? So while you're trying to condition yourself, you may want to set checkpoints, such as 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 365 days, and reanalyze yourself. See, usually at the beginning, you're going to find that it's going to be very, very easy to actually break these habits. But when that 90-day happens, a lot of times people go back into the habit and it's going to be rough. So you want to set checkpoints for yourself to make sure that you're on schedule. Hi, welcome to video number 7. In this specific video, you're going to learn how to remind yourself about your main focus. A lot of times it's very easy to get off track and get away from that main focus. So I'm going to show you how to make sure that you're consistent about having your eye on that main focus so that you can get it done. Consistency is always one of the biggest things that is needed. See, we're told to be consistent, persevere, and to avoid multitasking. But being consistent is not always easy when we have a lot of things going in our lives. It's really easier said than done. So this video is intended to help you achieve that by showing you methods that you can actually start using today. So let's go ahead and get started. You see, most of us are like frogs jumping from lily pad to lily pad, or in our case, idea to idea to idea, from task to task to task. You do an idea, you love it, you find another cool idea and you do that, or you do a task and you find another task because you're sick of the previous task, and so forth. So my whole goal here is to help you finish that task or that goal. By now you should know your weaknesses and your bad habits and kind of get an idea of how to break those bad habits. Now, as you analyze the different personality types, some of us are very systematic and some of us are just very scattered. But this can apply to everybody. The question is, do you multitask? If you multitask, which is the case for most people, do you have 10 dreams that you want to achieve at the same time? Well, we all do this. We all have those dreams that we want to achieve, and then we want to do this, but then we want to do this, and then we want to do this. But how do we know if we should do this? We start doing this, and then we want to move on to the next big dream. So we never really end up finishing what we want to finish. So my goal here is to get you in the mindset of breaking multitasking and breaking multi-dreams. So these are two elements that often cause roadblocks in our life. So you're going to have that urge to multitask. It's obviously easier said than done, but you want to focus on one thing at a time instead of 10. And you're going to learn how to make realistic goals in the future videos and how to become self-accountable to that. So multitasking tends to decrease the time spent and the productivity level. And I've actually tested this out numerous times. Your mind actually loses focus when it focuses on 10 things at one time. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I can multitask. And I thought that at one time that, oh, I can multitask. This is so easy. I'm able to do things faster. But the quality drops. And I've even tested this on a computer. Like, computers are machines, and they tend to do a lot of multitasking. But you'll notice that the more multitasking it is doing, the more RAM it's using, and the more memory that it's using, the slower it becomes. For example, like a computer downloading 10 files at one time is actually slower than it downloading one file at a time. It actually loses kilobytes. Now, some computer experts will debate that, and I've been doing a lot of computer stuff as well, but it's very interesting. If you actually do these tests, and I know some of you are thinking like, why would I ever do that kind of stuff? But this stuff fascinates me. Like, I found that 10 files downloading at one time can actually lose a couple hundred kilobytes or 50 or so kilobytes, and it's actually slower. But we tend to think that we can do things faster in a faster rate when we multitask, but it really doesn't happen that way. Now, I've spent a whole year one time focusing on 6 different projects, most taking longer than ever and never really getting done. And I thought to myself, I just spent a whole year focusing on 6 different projects, 6 different business ventures, most of them taking longer than ever, and they never got done. Then I focused on one project per 30 days for about 4 months, and it got done more than I did, that year. So that's why I say focus at one thing at a time. It's an illusion because your mind is beginning to think, okay, multitasking is easier, but in reality, it's one thing at a time. So what you need to do is you need to figure out the triggers. We talked about this earlier on how to break bad habits. You need to ensure that you review that video again if you haven't, and if it hasn't clicked in your mind what you need to do. Find that trigger that happens before this specific bad habit. Let's say you want to multitask. Okay, what can I do to avoid multitasking? And how can I stop this bad habit so that your subconscious will eventually condition yourself to automatically avoid it? Then what you want to do is you want to create an after trigger to avoid it. Let me give you an example. What I'm normally do is I'm at the computer and there's so many things that I could be distracted with. I could be distracted by Facebook. I could be distracted by YouTube. And I've been known to spend hours watching on YouTube. And if that sounds like you, then you'll definitely want to pay close attention. So what I normally do is find something where I can get away from the distraction. I usually walk around, drink some water, take a break, and then come back and focus on the main thing. In fact, right now, every time I create a video, I found that if I walk away, drink some water, take a break, take a bathroom break, come back, it's a lot more efficient. But it used to be in the back of the day when I created video courses and then I just create all of them at one time, the quality dropped and so forth and so forth. So just try to figure out some sort of trigger that you can implement yourself that will allow you to break that bad habit. Another thing that you can do is you can avoid talking to friends using Skype or online chats while working. Now that might be seem obvious if you do a lot of computer work and use the computer a lot, but that's what I find people doing. They're using Facebook, they're using YouTube, and so forth and so forth. So eliminate distraction items from the room. So go somewhere where there's no possibility of distractions, beds, TVs, kitchens, friends, family, and so forth. Spend 30 days on one dream or one attainable goal or until it is complete. And remember, focus on one dream allows you to skyrocket your speed and your quality. Hey, and welcome to video number 8. In this specific video, you're going to learn how to set realistic goals. Now, how do you set realistic goals, and how do you measure it, and how do you know if it's attainable and reachable and so forth? Well, we're going to be using a specific method called SMART for a goal, and it was created by a guy named George T. Duran. Now, whether you're a thinker or a feeler or a sensor or intuitive, you can always tweak the methods to the way that you think. So by that, what I'm going to give you is what SMART means and how you can achieve them. But if you're a systematic sensor type person, you're going to probably want to do things in a systematic way like SMART. But if you're a type of intuitive person, you can do it any way you want. Some of you are scattered, some of you are systematic, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just the way you think. But you can do TR, you can do it in different, ways. So just remember that as long as you're using the method to analyze a specific goal, that's what matters. So let's start with the acronym SMART. S stands for specific, M is measurable or meaningful, A is attainable or action-oriented, R is relevance or rewarding, and T is time-bound or trackable. Now, let me go in more depth about the specific or the S part. The goal needs to be very, very specific. If it's too general, then it's going to be hard to attain. So the greater chance of it being accomplished and completed and reached is greater than a general goal. So what I want you to do to figure out if it is specific, because sometimes we think it's specific and it really is not, but you can figure this out by answering these 6 questions. We got who, what, when, where, and why. So who is involved in this specific goal? You're involved, who else is involved, and so forth. Because if it relies on somebody else, then that could cause complications or it could speed it up, depending on the person. So, okay, who's involved? You're involved, and so is involved. You need to figure out if that person is reliable and if they can actually complete their task that is part of the goal. And then what do you need to accomplish? And then what do I want to accomplish in the specific goal? What are the benefits of this specific goal? And then where? Identify a location for that specific goal. And then when? Establish a time frame for that goal. And then why? Identify some requirements and constraints. Let me give you an example. A general goal would be, I'm going to eat right. Yeah, I'm going to go lose some weight. How are you going to do that? But be specific would be, okay, I'm going to eat right by finding a diet plan and recipes and cook the food on these certain days, and I'm going to go exercise these certain days and so forth. So that would be a specific goal that you can actually achieve. Now, I'm not saying that eating right is not something that you can achieve. It's just better and easier for you if it is specific. Measurable, if you can't measure, then how are you going to know that you're going to reach that specific goal? Measurable means that you can actually measure it. It cannot be something like, I want to stop world peace, or something general like that. You've got to ask yourself these questions: how much, how many, and how far, to ensure that they are measurable, attainable, reachable, action-oriented. Besides being measurable, are they realistically attainable? With your abilities and your skill set, can you actually reach these goals? Or with your abilities, your skill set, and those other people that are involved, can you as a team reach these goals? So what I want you to do is write down whether this is possible or if not. And if not, what do you need to do to get to that point? Do you need to get more people that have the abilities and skill set in that area, or so forth? Most goals you can attain by baby steps. Break them up into baby steps so that you can reach the finish line. A lot of times a big general goal, even though it is split up into 3 different phases, you can split those 3 different phases into much smaller baby steps. And I'm going to show you that in the video after this to show you how to become self-accountable. And you'll actually be surprised that after you have a list of 20 baby steps versus, let's say, 3 baby steps, you're starting to check them off the list. And you're going to become very, very motivated that you're going to want to complete all the little baby steps because you realize, wow, this is actually very, very easy to do. And of course, relevant. After you break your major goal into many baby steps and many baby step goals, ask yourself, do these minor goals relate or are they relevant to the main goal? Or do they deviate from the main goal? And then we have time bound. Give yourself a realistic time frame. Give yourself and give each baby step a time frame. I know this is going a little further in detail, and I'll show you that in just a minute in the next video, but giving each baby step a time frame will allow you to speed the process up, and you'll be able to see everything in step-by-step mode, get it all done, and you're going to become a happy camper. This will make it attainable and realistic, and also include what happens if they are not attained. You might want some sort of positive reinforcement than negative. However, sometimes you need negative reinforcement to remind you to move forward. Sort of like previously I talked about how to break habits. Break bad habits. You can get a buddy of yours and say, hey, keep this money, and if I don't focus and get this done, you can keep the money and so forth. So positive reinforcement is something that you definitely want the majority of, but it doesn't hurt to have some negative reinforcement as well. Hi, welcome to video number 9, how to become accountable to yourself. This video is to help you get self-motivated because it's easy to want to be motivated by others, but you can't be motivated by others at all times. In fact, there will be times in your project, in the phase of your project, or trying to complete a specific goal or task that you're going to be discouraged and you're going to be all alone. So if you've harnessed the power of self-motivation and self-accountability, then you're going to be able to surpass and go past these types of roadblocks. And especially if you're an E, an extroverted, then this is going to be your initial desire. You're going to want to be motivated by other people. You're going to be wanting to surround yourself with other people. But while that's good and bad in the same case, it could actually negatively impact you in the manner of you relying on other people to motivate you along the way. And otherwise, nothing really gets done because you're consistently wanting other people to motivate you. And of course, I say to avoid that because eventually the third-party motivation will end and you're going to be left by yourself wondering, what should I do now? If you rely on other people to motivate you, then you're not going to be persistent to your full potential. I'm going to show you how to be accountable to yourself using a simple spreadsheet. Now, while some of you are systematic and some of you are scattered all over, you can always customize it to your own personality. And what I mean by that is some of you will approach projects in a manner of, okay, I need to do this, then I need to do this, then I need to do this. So you like to-do lists. And then some of you hate to-do lists. Some of you will have your ideas splattered all over your desk and this and that. So whatever you choose to do, you can still use this accountability sheet to become self-accountable to yourself. So I'm going to be using Microsoft Excel, but you can use OpenOffice, which is free, or you can use Google Docs if you don't have OpenOffice or Microsoft Excel. And Google Docs is also free. And in fact, I actually used Google Docs spreadsheets for a while. And I'll tell you up front that I'm not a type of person that really likes to create spreadsheets, but I actually found this rather fun. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so what I want you to do now is open up Microsoft Excel, OpenOffice Excel, or Google Docs. Whatever you use, it's the same thing. And then at the very top, I want you to enter the keyword project and then phases, and I'll explain it in just a minute. Action steps, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then put time spent, status, and proof. Now, this may seem like a lot, but in actuality, most of it is just being taken up by the days. Okay, so the reason why most people fail is because they try to do a project and they don't break it up into steps. So let's say, for example, we're going to create a project. For example, this video course that I created. Video course. So let's talk about the phases. We've got research, and then you got action steps. So these are phases, and then these are action steps. So they're broken up into very small steps. If you break it up into small steps, then it's gonna be more achievable. You're gonna get a lot more checks off your list. That's gonna be motivating. And best of all, you can really compete with yourself to try to break your record. And that's what makes it fun. If you can make it into a game, that will help a lot. So research, what kind of research is required? You need to know, okay, let's see, gather facts, gather information, and so forth. So research, brainstorm, outline, or create outline. And it's good to use verbs if it's all possible, because verbs will help you and tell you what exactly you need to do. So create outline, let's see, and then record videos. You don't have to do it into fine, minute action steps. That's not required, but it definitely makes it more motivating. So create outline, record videos, let's see, edit videos, render videos in AVI formats, MP4 format, and then upload videos. Create outline, and we got write sales letter and send to proofreader. So writing draft, send, and finalize. And one thing I forgot to do is each of these need to be on its own line. So I'm going to need to move this here, and not a big deal, just move this here and do the same here and move this here. All right, so from this point on, I'm going to basically compete with myself and try to beat my record. Now, it used to take about a month or two, about a month to create a video course, a really good video course. Now, it takes about a week. So I'm trying to beat my record consistently. If I can beat my record, I can say, all right, research normally takes the most time. So I'm going to try to aim for less time. So let's say I work on Monday, and then I'm able to get it all done on Monday. And then I can say time spent about 2 hours total. Gather facts and info took about an hour each. And then status, you can put pending. I like to put pending while I'm working on it. And then when it's done, you just put done. And then you put the proof. You can put a link to it, or say in folder. In which folder, C drive, whatever, you know, etc. So what this does is it's actually motivating you to say, oh wow, I finished all this on Monday within 2 hours and they're done. Okay, great. I'm almost done. I got to create an outline, create a sales letter. So let's say, for example, it's almost time to go to bed and you are almost there. You're like, okay, I can, you know what? I can just go ahead and I can create this outline. And this outline, in fact, after you gather the facts, you realize that the outline takes about 15 minutes. So it's done. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to write the sales letter. Sales letter is not hard to write after I got my outline. And the sales letter takes about an hour. Done. So as you can see, I've broken it up into baby steps. And the point here is to show you that this in itself can help motivate you because you see these check marks. And you can do other things, like what I normally do is I will highlight all of this and I'll make it red. Or I'll just highlight this and make it red and bold it, just to remind me that I am almost done, you know. So analyzing how much I spend my time on, knowing how much time I have left, it will enable me to focus and diffuse those distraction bombs and have fun while I'm at it. So use this wisely and be consistent about it and have fun, and you'll be able to have more success and get a lot of things done.